This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 8th year of talk like you've never heard it before.
Hey everybody, this is Alex, and this is the Ramble. We go until midnight tonight from New York City. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, whenever I want to have my life reaffirmed, I call up Larry Bubbles Brown, and he tells me all the wonderful things it is to be alive.
Yes,
to be alive.
We will get you through the collapse of the banking system, and
The only French term that I can think of that describes Larry is joie de vivre. It's the only French I speak, but he's full of joie de vivre.
A young Maurice Chevalier.
Yeah. What was it again that Attell called you?
My Dust Bowl good look.
Your Dust Bowl good looks. Yeah, you really, you have a. I don't know why you never did more character roles. You were in some movies, right?
I did a couple movies. I was what was I?
You were in a Robert Altman film.
I was
What was it?
Alan
Parker. Alan Parker.
Birdie, and then I was in the Kite Runner, which was a big book. Which the book was more successful than the movie. So.
Well, how big a part were you in the Kite Runner?
I had 3 lines. I drove a big Mustang into a gas station. That was it. But it was kind of fun.
Fill her up, thank you, and I'll see you later. Right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And any other movie? What other movies? There were a couple others, weren't there?
I did a movie about car dealers called Suckers. That was actually a pretty funny movie. And what else? I can't remember, I think.
See,
something on TV. There was a TV show I did called Trauma. That was kind of fun. And
yeah. But
they called the director. Let's see. No, one of the actors called me and they said, "We talked about you. You'd be great would you be interested in doing a recurring character?" I said, "Oh, that'd be great." And then, of course, the show got canceled.
Wait a minute. Let me see here. Larry Bubbles Brown. Let me put this in Bubbles. Did you always list yourself as Larry Bubbles Brown on credits?
No, I don't. I think I never did on the
Brown. Okay, Larry Brown. Let's see.
And there's like 8 of them in SAG. So.
Oh, okay. Here's Larry Brown. Larry Brown, actor, Kite Runner. So that's got to be you. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see what it lists as you being your movie. Here we go. Here's the list of all of Larry's movies.
I never looked at this.
One-Sided Affair?
No.
No?
That's interesting because I got some residual checks for movies I didn't do, and I called SAG, and he goes, "What's your Social Security number?" And I gave it to him, and he goes, "Oh, my God." And I said, "What?" He said, "There's another Larry Brown whose Social Security number was 1 digit off mine."
No.
Yeah.
What are the chances of that?
I can't believe it. I don't.
But this was supposedly a movie, and it says One-Sided Affair. Pest Man?
No.
You don't remember that at all. Maybe that's what you got the check for, huh?
I think it was for a movie that was, maybe, was there a Jack Reacher movie that Tom Cruise did or something?
No.
We'll read some more of them, because I should look at this. Yes.
Well, here, Trauma.
I was in Trauma, yes.
You were in Trauma, 1 episode. Okay. There we go. And now The Kite Runner. Gas station customer.
Right.
None of these characters you played, any of them, have names. Okay? Then in Suckers, you were pathetic customer.
Pathetic customer, yes.
And in Royal Destiny, you were Brian. In Royal Destiny, do you know that film?
I was not in that, no.
Oh, okay. So really, you're only in 4 films.
Okay.
Okay. But the other ones, you have to send the checks back.
Yeah, I sent them back.
It says here, trivia. Did you know, trivia, known for deadpan, self-deprecating humor, he's been a stand-up in San Francisco since the early 1980s.
Who puts that shit in there?
I don't know. They have it. They get it. I used to, when I put in Alex Bennett, I used to get something come up in here. Let me try it. Let me try that. Alex Bennett. I doubt it, though, anymore. I think I saw it disappear, kind of. Alex Bennett. Let me see here. Pillow Talk now. Self. Across Killing Bay. Makeup department. Sound department. No. More popular searches. Alex Bennett. Well, there's Alex Bennett alone. Let's see if that comes up with anything that looks like I know it does. It's zero. Nothing. Used to be it would come up. I had a couple of things in here. But no. Actor. No. Knife crime. Actor. Connections. Actor. No, I don't see it anywhere.
You
here.
should be in there for hosting Comedy Tonight.
I should be, but no. I used to be in there. It used to be a couple of credits that I had.
You did that for how many years?
Comedy Tonight I did, I think 5 years, was it? And then I was replaced. The part of Alex Bennett, they should have said on the show, the part of Alex Bennett will now be played by Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah.
Because she wound up hosting the show for one season, and that was when I got dumped, So.
And where did they tape those?
They used to tape those at what is now Cobb's, which was then the...
then Wolfgang.
Wolfgang's, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we did them there. We did all of them there, actually.
And do you remember any acts that stood out?
I mean, we had a lot of people on there that were acts that kind of stood out. Goldthwait, of course, was there on that show. Did you ever do the show?
I came close, didn't quite get it. I remember, who I saw kill on that show was Jack Gallagher.
Jack Gallagher did great on that show.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always remember, though, is Jeff Dunham. And now he does not come, in my opinion, under the list of great comics. Okay, now Dunham, we were talking about guys who make it, who maybe shouldn't have. Dunham was my candidate for that. I mean, he had nothing but racist puppets.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, Senior Jalapeno. Just that alone would not get him on television anymore.
I'm laughing.
He looked like a jalapeno pepper,
That's hilarious.
But anyway, and he had this grumpy old guy. Okay, that's what made him famous, was the grumpy old guy, and he was a ventriloquist. So now we're down in the basement of Wolfgang's, and who was that? I have to say it, midget who used to take photographs. Do you remember his name? You're good at this stuff. Randy?
I do know. I know who you mean. He was killed in a car accident.
Yeah. He didn't see him, probably. But he was like a midget, basically. He had to stand up on chairs to take pictures.
He took all the pictures,
yeah. He was a great photographer. I think his name
was, yeah.
I seem to remember the name Randy something. But anyway. So he's taking our pictures, right? He's going to take our pictures. And it's me, and then there's the grumpy old man dummy, okay? And then Dunham is sitting next to the dummy on the other side, right? And at one point, Dunham looks at me and goes, "Alex, I hear you don't like prop comics." And I looked at him and I said, "No, it's ventriloquists that I hate." And he doesn't bat an eyelash. But the dummy turns around, looks at me, and bares his teeth.
Wow.
That was so spooky. That was like out of those movies where you got a ventriloquist dummy that comes up, a picture that just, I can't remember the name of it, The Great Gabbo. Eric von Stroheim was in it. And it's all about a guy who has a ventriloquist dummy. And at the
Oh,
end,
really? I didn't know Stroheim
at
did
the
one of those.
end of the movie, end of the movie, the dummy comes to life and kills him. And as a kid, after seeing that, I had nightmares forever about ventriloquist
that sounds
dummies.
scary. I want to see that.
So there was never a ventriloquist dummy that didn't look evil to me after that, you know. Yeah, there have been several movies about ventriloquists and their dummies, and I think the reason is that Slayton told me once he was working at a club in the South somewhere, and as all those clubs in those days did, they had what they called their condo. They had an apartment they rented so that when the comedians came to town, they could put them up in the condo rather than rent a hotel, which would cost them much more. So they double people up, you know, a 2-bedroom condo. So that week, Slayton was put up in the same room with a ventriloquist. And he said one day he walks in, and the ventriloquist is sitting there with his dummy watching television. And they're talking to each other like,
Oh,
boy,
my God.
I don't think she did that. Do you think she did that? No, she didn't do that. Oh, I think so. You know, and he finally walked over to him and said, "Stop it. Just stop it."
Freak me out.
Ventriloquists are crazy. They're
Maybe
nuts.
they are, yeah.
They're nuts. Have you ever met a ventriloquist?
Otto and George, yeah.
Well, that's a different story. That was the best ventriloquist.
He had a very vacant look in his eyes. I remember that.
Oh, he did. Oh, okay. Because Otto and George were the dirty ventriloquists.
They were super dirty, yeah.
Yeah, super dirty. And it wasn't that. What was the name? The puppet's name was what? Otto, or was the?
I think the puppet's name was George.
The puppet's name was George, and
you would think it was the other way around.
Yeah, and George was just this absolutely mean puppet, and dirty, just filthy, and the people loved that act. I mean, I remember that was like Slayton's favorite act.
It was fun to watch.
Yeah, everybody loved Otto and George. I never saw them. Probably, I guess if I went on YouTube, I could find them.
Oh, he's all over, I think, YouTube, I think.
Yeah. You should be all over YouTube. But nobody ever videotapes you, so, you know.
Oh, I don't know. You find yourself... I wish it'd be nice if you could get yourself off the Internet completely.
Yeah.
Why doesn't somebody come up with that service?
What? Just no...
Erasing you from the Internet if you don't want to be on there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, if we erased you from the Internet, every show I've ever done with you would now disappear. But, you know, it's so, I mean, we have ventriloquists are just crazy. They're nuts. They're out of their mind. And what kind of woman would want to marry a ventriloquist? Just tell me that right now.
Yeah, what were the? Yeah, you're right. There's been several movies about crazy ventriloquists. Was it Chucky?
Well, no, Chucky was a doll.
Okay.
Chucky was a toy, a doll toy.
There was I remember some ventriloquist movie from the '60s when I was a kid. That was kind of scary.
Well, there was one with Anthony Hopkins called Magic.
Okay, I think that's it.
Yeah, that's the one you're probably thinking of. But I mean, just we used to hear stories from what do you call it, Candace Bergen, because she was Edgar Bergen's daughter. And Edgar Bergen, in case people don't know who we're talking about, because back in the day, if I'd mentioned, Edgar Bergen, today they go, who was Edgar Bergen? Edgar Bergen had a puppet by the name of Charlie McCarthy, a dummy by the name of Charlie McCarthy. And they were a eminently popular ventriloquist act. So much so that he had a radio program.
Yeah, my father told me about him. My father loved him. Did he have a character named Mortimer Snerd?
Mortimer Snerd. And then they had a woman by the name of Effie. I can't remember her last name. But he had a couple of dummies. But the other one was Mortimer Snerd. And if you were a kid, you probably liked Mortimer Snerd more than you liked Charlie, because Charlie wore a monocle and he sometimes wore a tuxedo and he was fancy and all of that. But Mortimer Snerd was just this dumb guy with an overbite, you know. And but she talks about it that Charlie McCarthy in their home had his own room.
God.
You know, and you know, they would keep Charlie McCarthy like sitting in a chair or lying in a bed in that room, and that room was that was Charlie's room. And she said it was terrible being brought up in that atmosphere because you either felt that he had to be considered your brother, or it was just you were always being compared to him. You're not as good as the dummy. You know?
Yeah, it almost sounds like these guys are schizophrenic or something.
It's a duality that happens, I think. You know, I mean, you're talking to yourself, but which is probably better than talking to yourself. You know, but it was a great act. I mean, as a kid, I loved Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Who didn't? But then they were on radio, and you would go. This was a joke that was done in Woody Allen's radio days, where the kid says the same thing I think I said to my parents once when we were listening to Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy on radio. How do we know his lips aren't moving?
Yeah.
Come on, it's radio. You don't know if his lips are moving or not. You don't even know if he's got the dummy sitting there. Well, he had to have the dummy there because he was doing it in front of a live studio audience. But, you know, you don't know whether his lips are moving. You don't know how good he is at being in fact, Edgar Bergen was actually a lousy ventriloquist because his lips did move a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, there's some that are so good that you don't even know they're doing it, you know.
The great Paul Winchell.
Yeah, well, guys, the trouble is, guys have a trouble being a ventriloquist only because their Adam's apple goes up and down. Even if they're not moving their lips, that Adam's apple goes up and down. Now, I've seen female ventriloquists, and they do their act, and there's no way of telling them, that it's coming out of their mouth. Yeah.
I've never seen a female ventriloquist.
Yeah. But, you know, I mean, it's just, I think they're just strange. I think they live through their dummy. God, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I remember the black ventriloquist, Willie Tyler and Lester.
Willie Tyler and Lester, yeah. Yep, the black ventriloquist act. Mm-hmm. And what's funny about Willie Tyler and Lester, let me tell you this. Do you ever notice there was always a ventriloquist dummy face? It kind of looked Irish. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of them, no matter who they were. Paul Winchell and Jerry Mahoney, same face as Charlie McCarthy. And then you get to Willie Tyler and Lester, and that's a black dummy. But he's got this Irish face. You know. I never could figure that one out either.
I got Willie Tyler. Great guy.
You know what's strange is you and I are reminiscing about stuff that I probably would have reminisced with my friend Shecky. You know?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that because I got the bad news from you last week. And
didn't I tell you in one of my messages that
you said he passed, and I was upset because I always wanted. He sounded like such a great guy. I always wanted to meet him.
Yeah. Everybody says that to me. Yeah, especially comics. I would have liked to have met him. You know, and
he had that amazing all these collectibles and stuff. It just sounded like a museum.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was. His collectibles were basically little dolls that Warner Brothers would put out, or pictures that he had commissioned to have painted of cartoon characters and so on. And that's a fairly nice collection, but I don't know if it's worth anything. I often said to him, all this stuff is worth so much. You know it's not, because he knew what things were worth. He said, nah. He said, this stuff will all wind up in the dumpster outside the house once I die.
Well, it sounded like he had some baseball cards that were worth quite a bit of money.
Yes. So he told me that. Now, I don't know if that's, untrue until they're found, I mean, he died. You know what got to me about it is I wondered, why is it affecting me so badly? And I don't think that there was ever anybody closer to me than Shecky was. And I've never had anybody that close to me die. You know?
That's traumatic.
And I know they say, well, how about your wife, Alex? Well, I've only been married to her for 10 years. I knew Shecky for 45. You know? Or 11 years, whatever. But I knew Shecky for 45 years. And that can get to you. You know, it can really, really throw you for a loop. Because I've never had anybody that close to me die. I had my father die. He died at 59. Boy, that was a tragedy. And I know that I was very upset about that because nobody could be closer to you than your father, you know. But, I mean, as a friend in my lifetime, nobody's been closer than Shecky. And it's been a relationship that is maintained over 45 years. It wasn't like there was 20 years we didn't even talk to each other, you know.
Where did you meet him?
I was introduced to him by, I was a birthday present. A friend of his, Steve Weiner, who I knew, had me come to a lunch for his birthday. And the reason I was asked to go there was to be a present for him because he always wanted to meet me.
Really?
Yeah. Because they all listen to me on radio and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that's how we met, you know, and I'm still friends with his friend Steve Weiner, but I haven't been that close to Steve Weiner all these years as I have been to Shecky. So it was kind of an amazing kind of thing. But
did he have any family?
Oh yeah, he had a brother out in Steamboat Springs, and he had a bunch of nieces, and you know, I mean, as I said, there are several levels of knowing Shecky and being in Shecky's orbit. One of them was you worked for Letterman. That was one orbit, okay? Then there were the people he knew through his going to film festivals and things like that and his movie associations, and that was another orbit. And then there was the family, and that was yet another orbit. And all these orbits didn't ever seem to really meet with each other. I can't say I've ever met his brother, and I've met a couple of the people at Letterman, but very few, you know. And then there was that really small orbit of people who were just his friends, like me, you know, and Steve Weiner. And we're a very small group as opposed to the others. But I think we were also closer to him than a lot of the others. So on a personal basis, you know. So I mean, it's amazing. He had a lot of friends. I mean, there were a lot of people who been writing about him and talking about him and so on. And
I know he was with Letterman almost from the start, right?
From the start of the evening show. Well, the NBC show, he joined them, I think, a month in.
Wow.
Yeah, and remained there for the rest of the show, becoming, I think, the third longest employee of Letterman.
Jeez.
Yeah, nobody ever mentions that. That's the, you know, to have to deal with Dave for that many years. God. You know. Although Dave was
and you told me a couple of weeks ago, you mentioned that you said he was sick, but I had no idea it was that bad. So.
I didn't have the idea it was that bad. You know, now it turns out he actually had multiple problems. At least Leonard Maltin, who was very close to him in that film orbit, you know, he said that he had multiple health issues. Now,
Okay.
I only knew about one, okay, and that was his drinking, okay, and he'd been drinking for as long as I've known him, vodka, which is his drink of choice, and I never figured it was a real problem. I figured, you know, he was kind of an occasional drinker, would have a drink once a day,
okay.
One of those kind of things, and I think it was far worse than that because there was an element. He died from complications from cirrhosis.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's what I think he died of. Nobody's saying, you know. I just have to, you know, put my brain together and figure that one out. But, you know.
I don't know much about alcohol, but I know vodka is pretty strong.
Well, it's deceptive because it doesn't smell. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the preferred drink.
It's clear.
Yeah, it's the preferred drink of alcoholics because it doesn't have it on your breath and it's clear, as you said. But anyway, I just, I constantly miss him. And then we just got into this conversation and about Charlie McCarthy, and I went, "Yeah, this is the kind of discussion I would have with Shecky."
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
So sorry I never met him.
Well, you will eventually, if you believe. Anyway.
We'll all meet him in that big radio station up in the sky.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, my pal and a guy that I really love having here, and he does it every 2 weeks for me. We sit here and do 2 episodes, and I really appreciate that, Larry.
Oh, that's what friends are for,
Yeah,
bro.
I'll say that before I'm dead and can't say it. Anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Bubbles Brown. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thanks, Alex.
This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 8th year of talk like you've never heard it before.
Okay, thank you very much, Larry. And, we have that nice little thing like these with Rob Alfano.
This is GabNet, the Great American Broadcast Network, now in its 8th year of talk like you've never heard it before.
See, we have that, and I just wrote Rob to see if he could do one saying 9 years, and he may not be able to because he doesn't have equipment to do it with in the Philippines right now. But anyway, we'll see what we can do. Also, we have another guy who would like to do it, and he's a very good voice. But, Rob has just been such a tradition with us that I hate to see him, disappear from that. Anyway, we only have one person waiting to... now there are 2 people waiting to talk to us. Okay, all right, well, that's a beginning, I guess, somewhere along the line here. Hello, Josh Wheeler, and hello to Ray Renati. How are you, Ray?
Hello. Hey, Alex.
Yeah. You have that background there, half in there.
Yeah, that's just the...
Because, if I were to move this back, you'd see the same kind of effect. Yeah, you see now, that's kind of good. Yeah. Anyway, hello to both of you. How are you this evening?
Good.
Yeah. And Josh, didn't see you last week, but you were out of town, right?
Yeah, that's right.
What were you doing?
My wife and I just went away for a few days to do some of our normal traveling, and we went to coastal Virginia. We went to Yorktown and Jamestown for a few days.
Mm-hmm. You always take trips to historic places, don't you? That's your hobby, as it were.
Yeah, that and parks like national parks, scenic and nature type stuff, that kind of thing. Yeah.
How many national parks have you seen?
Ooh, I don't know. A lot.
A lot.
Not sure the number. I don't have the count. I mean, there are 63 national parks, and then there's about another 400 and just over 400 other sites that the Park Service runs that are made up of national historic sites, national monuments, national battlefields, that kind of thing.
Wow.
So altogether, they run close to 500 sites. I don't know how many we've been to, and I don't know how many parks. I've been to at least probably a third of those.
Yeah. By the way, I just noticed I didn't have my Zoom screen up, but I do now, so there you go, folks.
Yeah, so quite a few. And we've hit some of the big players out west, for sure. So it's nice, but it's but it's expensive. You can only do so much at one time.
Yeah.
Those places are pretty far away and cost a lot of money to get to.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
But they're basically, they're basically free or very low cost. It's one of the nice things the government does do.
I got a pass once, a senior pass or something.
Yeah, we buy the pass every year. Yeah.
Well, but this wasn't one I had to buy. They said, "Oh, well, you're a senior. Here, it's free."
Yeah, at a certain point, they do give them away for free. Like Patrick, because he's in a wheelchair, he can just get one for free.
Yeah. Well, what happened was when Shecky and I were traveling across the United States, we went to Bryce Canyon.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
And as we went in, they said, "Oh, how old are you?" And I said, "Well, They said, "Are you over 65?" And I think I was maybe 70 at the time. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And they said, "Okay, cool. You get this pass, and it's a pass that's good at any of the." The national parks, and you can get in for nothing. However, your friend has to pay full fare, because he hadn't reached 65 yet. So
yeah, but it's Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that when they had the fires and then COVID, and I've been to Yosemite probably 6 times, and you don't there's nobody ever there to pay. You just drive right in.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why
At times,
I haven't paid the last half dozen times I've gone. I haven't paid.
I mean, they ask that people, stop at the pay stations.
No, there isn't anywhere to pay. They want you to just come in.
Pay.
Yeah, it depends on the national park. That's just Yosemite.
Of course, what I found about Yosemite, Shecky and I went to visit Yosemite once. This was at an entirely different time, and I think you had to make a reservation to be even able to get on the grounds.
No, you can drive in. Anyone could drive in. You have to have a reservation to stay somewhere.
No, it depends. I mean, there are some parks now, with as busy as they've gotten, that did move to what's called a reservation system. And it's not for a particular time, but what you can do is you basically get like a window of entry. And they start giving them away. They're all a little different. Most of them are 90 days in advance. The reservation is free, but what you do is you say, I want to visit the park on this day, and that's the day that that you're allowed in. It's not a particular time or anything. And then they usually give you either a 3-day window or a 7-day window that it's good for. Like if you miss that day or whatever, you're traveling out there and you get held up or whatnot. It's not as if your window is gone. They'll give you a 3-day or a 7-day. And then some of the parks don't do it for entry, but they do it for something within the park that is basically considered like the main attraction.
That's what Yosemite does.
So that it's virtually the same as for entry, in a way. Like Glacier National Park, for example, last year didn't have a reservation system for the park, but it did have a reservation for the main attraction, which is called the Going to the Sun Road. That's the main thing people go there for, is to drive that scenic route, and you had to have a reservation for it. So I think last year there only 6 parks ended up doing it. It's just to try to cut down on the overcrowding,
Well, like last year I hiked to Half Dome, and I had to I applied probably 10 times before I got the pass to do it.
Yeah, some of them are, difficult. But we've never had any trouble because my wife keeps up on it, and, they start giving away the tickets 90 days in advance. So if you get on the reservation system, on that 90th day away from the day that you want in, it's usually okay. And it just limits the amount of people that can go in a day. The alternative is to just close the park when it gets too busy and bum people out, which is what, some of the parks do. Like Arches National Park in Utah has gotten so busy the last few years that they've had many days where at like 11 or 12 o'clock, they've just closed the park for the day and either said we might or may not reopen. And then I've also heard that at times they allow people to basically just sit in line, and they do a 1 in, 1 out deal. Every time a car leaves, they let a car in. But people sit for hours to, so the parks have been really crowded the last couple of years. One of the only decent things that Trump did during his time was, he did support and sign the Great Outdoors Act, which finally gave, hundreds of millions, if not like a billion, almost $1 billion to the National Park Service to finally divvy up between all of its 500 sites for infrastructure upgrades, fixing some of the roads and parking areas and things like that. And the Park Service had not been funded very well.
Wait a minute, Trump did something for us?
I mean, he signed the bill. I don't know if it was, exactly his idea or anything.
Oh, okay.
But I mean,
didn't
Congress passed it and he didn't oppose it.
Well, I thought the Republicans were trying to take back money from the parks.
They have not been kind to them at times, that's for sure.
So how'd they manage to get that one through? What made them?
It was like, that's what I'm saying, is it was kind of a miracle in a way. It was one of the decent things to come out of his administration, because the parks were woefully underfunded for many years. And, some of them were starting to fall apart. I mean, which is very sad. I mean, some of these places that you think are, these amazing places like Yosemite or Yellowstone or whatever, at times you go places and there is all that beauty, but then you also see these old, out of date, buildings falling apart and, not as handicap accessible as you would think, even though the government owns them, right? They don't even meet some of their own regulations in some ways. And, that's pretty sad, because the parks belong to all the people, right? I mean, that was Theodore Roosevelt's thinking, and that was his line, and it hasn't changed. And to me, Patrick has just as much right to visit the national parks as you and I do.
And some of them are inaccessible to him because they're not handicapable.
Yeah. I mean, right, or what is there is in disrepair, and that's not right, So I'm glad that they're fixing some of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, we buy this pass every year that is $80, and it gets you into all the parks as many times as you want.
During a given year, right?
Yep, in a year. Yeah, we just pay $80 a year. Yeah, we do a lot of that, and it's rewarding, and I think the Park Service, does a nice job, and people can argue about it or whatever, but I mean, when we visited Little Rock, Arkansas,
it's one of the really nice things we have,
Yeah, right.
And the fact that they didn't want to,
Yeah, and it's very educational, and that's what I was saying. When we visited Little Rock in the fall, and we went to Little Rock Central High, home of the Little Rock Nine, who were in that famous back and forth with the governor of Arkansas and the National Guard and all that. We took a tour that walks you up and down the street where all the action happened, and where the National Guard was there to supposedly to help the black kids get in school, but ended up not helping them at all.
Right.
And we were given a tour by a black park ranger, and the tour that he gave was really great. And he gave a little disclaimer at the beginning that he was going to give you some real facts, and if you found those offensive, he wasn't going to apologize for it. And I don't know what's going on there. And
what's all that noise, Brian?
What?
Did your lovely daughter start playing music?
No.
What?
And there was there was a school group there the day that we went, of like middle school kids, and he really laid it out for him, and he was talking about, hey, these kids were basically the same age as you, and they did this deal where he was going up and down through the crowd, and he was kind of acting like he was in people's face, and he used the word nigger, yelling at them a couple times. And he said, this is what happened here. This is what this was like. And I found it educational.
Vernon.
I just looked it up, and the Great Outdoors Act was signed on August the 5th of 2020, which means that the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
So don't
that's-
give Trump credit for it. I mean, he signed it, but
Well, I mean, he could have stood in the way, but he didn't.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he promoted it. You know, I remember at the time it was promoted. You know, so I mean, it was. You know, look, I'm fair. I don't care where the money came from. It's just nice to see that it is happening. And since then, we've been to places where, you know, there's things going on, and you know, they have the little sign up that says, you know, paid for with money by the, you know, your tax dollars. You know, the Great American Outdoors Act, and you know, and you're looking at something that obviously needed remodeling or replacement or repair, and there it is. It's happening. And, you know, that's the way it should be.
every August 4th is free entrance day.
What?
Yeah, they do have a couple of those every year. Veterans Day is usually free, and they have 4 or 5 others, you know, depending on. Well, like I said, I thought it was interesting to go to somewhere like Little Rock and, you know, be given a tour by a park ranger who, like I said, gave a disclaimer at the beginning that said you're gonna get the story of what happened here, and you're gonna find some of it offensive. And you know, like I said, you heard the word nigger. You know, I mean, with a group of school kids there, and he just said, you know, this girl walked up and down this street of 1,000 people and was called that over and over and over again. And that's the famous picture you see of her sitting on.
I'm
this
trying to remember
bench
what
down
her
there
name
crying.
was. One time I knew her name.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, it's moving stuff when you go there. You know, he talks about, you know, how she knew that it wasn't all rosy and everything, but, you know, she'd stayed up late the night before and sewn her own dress, and she thought if she had a nice dress and looked nice, the white kids would accept her and all that. You know, I mean, it just lays out, you know, what happened in this country during that time. I mean, I didn't find any political bend to it or anything. I mean, it was just a nice tour, and you can go places like that and just get yourself informed if you so choose, you know. So
anyway, Brian,
we like doing it, you know. We go other places too.
What, Brian?
How do you think the next generations are going to treat the national parks? I mean, you have so many kids that want to stay home. You know, they go for field trips there, but kids are staying home and not going out. And, you know, the cars thing is a big thing. You know, a lot of these old cars, all these old timers have been passing away, and all these big collections just get disappeared. So it's interesting how a lot of the stuff, the other generations start dying off, things that happen.
Well, I think
Right.
that the problem that we have is we're starting to lose a lot of our legacy. I was mentioning, maybe it was last week, that the thing that bothered me about the passing of my friend Rick Shecky was that the amount of knowledge that he had about film, which he had passed along to all of us. I mean, anybody who talked to him, he would pass along this piece of information or that piece of information. But the fact of the matter is, as time goes on, people have less respect for what went before them. And in the case of film, that's being totally lost. I mean, you know, these people who collect silent films and keep the legacy of silent films alive, there are very few of them. And what's going to happen in another couple of years? Are they really going to care? You know? Are they really going to care about some of this simple stuff? No, I don't think so. And I think we have a tendency to have our legacy die. And who knows what's going to happen to these things? Will future generations have respect for these national parks? You know, apparently it took a bunch of Democrats to get that stuff passed, as somebody just mentioned here. You know, I mean, it's terrible that we really don't care about our legacy and about our past and what went on in our past. And who cares the least are the kids today. They really don't care, you know? So, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, they are at least busy right now. Everywhere we go is, you know, has high attendance, and We did see a lot of school groups, for example, this past trip that we took both at Jamestown and at Yorktown, specifically at Jamestown. Um, but, I mean, they are kids. They didn't seem to be paying attention. They were kind of screwing off. But,
It's kind of a boring vacation.
They're in middle school. I mean, that's what middle school kids do, I guess.
Well, I just think that people should have a curiosity of all that went before them. When I was a kid, I was very well aware of stuff that happened before I was born. And I think I owe that to my father, who, for instance, used to turn me on to music from the past, and so I had an idea of what went on before I was born, and I was fascinated by that. All my life I've been fascinated by that. So, it's just a shame.
Yeah.
It's just
that does seem to be, waning a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking of Brian as I was watching your young child there. Is she still in back of you there? Yeah, because I see that purple light. What's the purple light?
It's a UV light.
Yeah, and what's she using it for? That's what she's using it for.
To be annoying.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm thinking about her. She reminds me of a cat. Now, I'll tell you why. Let me explain this. If you watch a lot of these news programs, like on MSNBC, where they have, we have our contributors here who are going to give us their opinion about this particular thing, and then they show them in their home because everything's done by Zoom now, and as they're talking, their cat walks in front of them.
Yeah.
She's kind of like that, isn't she? Whenever the camera's on, she's just there. She's like a cat.
No, you're not. No. She wants to go get the cat. No, sit down.
No, she wants. She wants.
She has a UV light. Like the secret light, the writing, the pen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you can use UV, and then you can see what she wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need to see.
Okay,
it.
here. Will that get me into the club?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, sit down. You're going out.
Oh boy. Well, I just I get a little bit bothered by people who just don't care anymore about anything. I mean, let's be honest about it. How many people do you think in this country right now care about what's going on with Donald Trump?
Fewer and fewer.
Yeah. I mean, they could care less. Oh, well, he screwed this porn actress, so what? Well, that's not what it's about.
Right.
Well, what interesting analysis I heard the other day was, it was about banking, but it can be said about the stuff going on with Donald Trump as well. We want to get the country back to the point where banking is boring. What's going on with Donald Trump? Let's get it to where it's in the court system and nobody cares.
Well, I mean, you should care.
No, I mean, as far as public opinion.
Yeah.
It's in the courts. That's where it should be. Let the courts adjudicate it and let the chips fall where they will.
Well, you see, what he did would probably be illegal in any conditions if, in fact, he claimed that money was being used for something else. He didn't.
Right.
And so there's nothing illegal about paying somebody hush money. We have things in this business that everybody knows are called non-disclosure agreements, and that's essentially what that was. People that call it hush money, but it's really a non-disclosure agreement. We'll pay you $130 if you agree to keep your mouth shut.
Right.
So,
and what got Trump in trouble were two things. He got in trouble for two things. Number one was he reimbursed Michael Cohen with campaign finance money, and the second thing was he falsified business records to claim it as a business expense.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's for starters, but you got to realize everybody forgets there's another woman involved in this. There's that Playboy model who he went with for a while, saw on many different occasions. And then she was paid by the National Enquirer to keep her mouth shut.
Right.
And that's where Pecker came into the picture. with his testimony.
McDougal or McDowell.
Yeah, I know.
McDougal.
You find Tony's going. That's funny, Pecker. Ooh.
Here goes
Yeah.
Donald.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole incident started with a pecker and ended with one. So that's what they say.
In her case, though, it was different because that was considered a gift in kind to the campaign.
A gift in what?
A gift in kind. In other words, the National Enquirer paid her to be quiet, and they considered that, because it was during the campaign, they considered that a contribution to the campaign in kind.
Yeah. Well, what they did is they told her, just write us a whole article about the whole thing, and then they didn't publish it. It's
Right.
what they call catch and kill, basically. And that's what went on there. But there was a lot of stuff going on, and there's a big question as to, whether any
I
of
heard something interesting today. 5 minutes after the announcement that Trump was indicted up in New York, Ron DeSantis announced that he would not cooperate in any kind of extradition process if they tried to extradite Trump from Florida. And then I heard tonight that Donald Trump is probably going to give himself up because he doesn't want Ron DeSantis to grab the limelight.
Well, I think he's going to do it anyway because he's planning on using this as a publicity thing. He's got a film crew ready to follow him and to document the whole thing and so on and so forth, that he looks upon this as a way to make money. So, I mean, and it's kind of sad. I mean, that he has to make money that way. But they say the last week or so he's made about $2 million for his campaign. So, I mean, he looks upon it as a fundraising thing. And it's going to be a couple of years before this thing ever goes to court. So it could be that while if he runs for president and gets nominated again, then this would probably be towards the end of the campaign that he'd have to be going to court. But what I find disgusting is Trump going around saying that he's a candidate for president and they're trying to stifle his campaign. Well, he became a candidate for president 3 years ahead of time. And the reason he did it is so that if somebody did indict him, he could make this claim. But the fact was that this was done independently of that. Nobody's trying to stop him from running for president. In fact, he can still run, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What about some of the federal charges, though? If some of the federal charges are laid against him, could that stop him from running for president?
No.
No,
he can still run.
he can still run. Now, suppose he wins, and now he's sentenced to jail. I mean, what happens there? This becomes a big mess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
My guess is that if he did win, he would serve his term and then go to jail after he's no longer president.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. But he might not be alive that long.
If he was in
One can
prison,
hope.
What were you saying, Jeff?
if he was in prison, whoever, let's say the Democrats, could make a decision that he can no longer be the effective president, and therefore he could be terminated.
No, he can't be terminated. Once he's elected, he can't be terminated unless he does something that's illegal.
So
He
how
could
did
be
they
impeached.
get
He could be
Nixon?
impeached and removed from office by the Senate,
Mm-hmm.
but that would require 2/3 vote.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big mess. It's a big mess. But I don't care. If the kids don't care, I don't care,
And this rule that the Justice Department has, people forget that rule came about because of Spiro Agnew.
What rule?
The rule that you cannot indict a sitting president.
Oh, okay.
The Justice Department policy that you cannot indict a sitting president. That came about because of Spiro Agnew.
Well, I mean, if nobody should be above the law, there seems to be something wrong with that. if he's guilty of something, I mean, what if the president turns around, takes a gun, and shoots somebody and kills them? And he's now on trial for murder. I mean, they can't throw him out of office?
Congress could.
Congress could. Okay. Yes, yes, Alan.
Josh is going to be able to answer this best probably, but if he is convicted in a federal crime, does that stop him from running for president?
No, it shouldn't. I mean, people serving time in federal prison can run. It's happened before.
Oh,
And inmates have run, got their name on the ballot somehow, remember? I mean, I don't remember their names, but not in every state, but, I mean.
Would they have to let them out of prison in order to serve their term?
Really don't know. They didn't win. So
sometimes when these negotiations happen, he may negotiate not going to jail in return for saying, put him on probation and he can't run for president during that time. That might be part of the deal.
Well, he says, this was on Drudge tonight, he says he is not going to cop a plea.
Well, in New York, they're going to find him guilty. You could bet on that.
I don't know if that's going to be that easy, And after they find him guilty, how bad is the fine or the sentence? Because it could just wind up being a misdemeanor.
They're
That's
going
why
after a felony, though. They're going after a felony.
they're going after a felony, but they might only come out with a misdemeanor. Is what I'm saying. And the question is, if it's only going to be a misdemeanor, then I mean, haven't we wasted our time? That's why these other things have to happen. Why the federal charges have to come along, and the charge in Georgia has to come along, because that's very definitely tampering with voting. Okay, but I mean, this is not. I don't know what's going to happen with all this. It's a real mess. And then I asked this question last night: if he goes to jail, let's just say he goes to prison, does the Secret Service have to serve with him? And what crime did they commit? Huh?
They have people in the jail, especially in a federal prison. They're going to watch them.
No, but I bet you he has to have Secret Service, or isn't he?
Well, it's not. He's entitled to it.
Yeah.
If he wants it, he can forego it at any time, and then ask for it back at any time.
Mm-hmm.
If he were to serve time somewhere, they would, I'm sure, segregate him, and he would get his detail within the parameters of the rules, but they just work on shift or whatever. I mean, coming and going, just like anywhere else. But I find that doubtful, but we'll see.
Well,
but I mean, he's entitled. I mean, there's nothing that says he has to have it. He
yeah,
can
but
forego it.
are there do our current ex-presidents carry a full contingent of Secret Service, or have some of them said, I don't need that much?
I think they've all taken it, and it's a decent sized, detail usually. It's obviously not what they have, when they serve, but it's fairly decent. I know some of the vice presidents have turned theirs down, but I don't think any of the former presidents have turned theirs down.
Tell you what's getting to me here, really, is the fact that Donald Trump has cost New York City a fortune, an absolute fortune. Between the 4 years that we were completely guarding Trump Tower, and then now they don't do it anymore. They've pulled off that. But I mean, and now with this thing, with this trial, think of the money they're spending to just shore up their security and so on. It's ridiculous how much money this city is paying out to do that, and not getting reimbursed for it, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, they did rent the U.S., the U.S. Secret Service. They did rent them a large space within to basically have as a base of operation and house agents.
Oh yeah, but
during,
they paid Trump for the space.
right. That's correct. That's what I'm saying. It was a pretty inflated number, and for
I
example,
mean, why he didn't say, "Hey, it's on the house"? I
yeah,
mean, come
if
on.
if President Obama, for example, had spent 7, 8, 9, 10 days at a time at his home in Chicago, and they had went and rented the house next door to his house that Obama just happened to own, and he was renting it to the Secret Service for $85,000 a month or something like that. Republican leadership would have been upset.
Yeah, but
I would have been upset.
But I don't think they were protecting that property as much as they protected Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And do you know what Trump Tower also did to the businesses in the area? Decimated them. Just decimated them. I'm surprised that Tiffany's is still in business. I mean, they're on the corner, but I'm surprised they're still in business. I mean, it's been devastating to New York, the amount of stuff we've had to do. Whole streets were blocked off there for 4 years. The side streets were blocked off for 4 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and that impacted traffic. I mean, this guy has been a big, major pain in the ass in so many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he made the Secret Service rent properties everywhere that he owned, basically, because he would travel to all of them. And there was a lot of reporting done on that. I mean, reading that they had spent like $500,000 one year on like golf cart rental fees or something like that. I mean, it was enormous amounts of money. I mean, it was exorbitant.
I'm sure he's charging the Secret Service to stay at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, they rented a couple suites, and they were paying higher than their normal rate, and the Washington Post did a lot of work on this, and they were also paying, at times they were paying like what we would probably call like the in-season rate, even when they were there in the off season. In other words, they were paying, and they would be there in January, and they were paying rates to rent these rooms that place would charge in like July in the summer tourist season. And in a room at Mar-a-Lago is not $175 a night like a hotel. It's
right.
I mean, they were literally paying a few $1,000s a night per room for agents to have a room to sleep in. So
I remember he took no payment for being president.
A little ridiculous, yeah. I mean, like I said, I remember reading a report in the Washington Post that said the Department of Defense, for example, had paid like $135,000 or somewhere in that range to rent the apartment next to the Trump apartment in Trump Tower, specifically for the gentleman who carries the nuclear football to sleep when he was in New York, because it has to go everywhere the president goes. And that guy that carries it is entitled to a room, and it can never be more than so many feet away from the president of the United States. And he couldn't sleep in the personal quarters of the Trump family, so they rented the apartment across the hall, and they charged him a full rate. And they had to have it all year. I mean, it was just bizarre stuff, So, I mean, made a lot of money off of that. I mean, it was all out there. I mean, it was in the newspapers, but I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, he could go on TV tomorrow and say, I price gouged and all the, and people, his defenders or Phil would come, well, he's a businessman, he's got a right to make money, okay, but I mean,
I just find it.
Make sure you say that the next time. That's fine.
I find it. I guess the Trump fans, the MAGA people, have got to be morons, okay? And the reason they've got to be morons is, are you really sending this guy money for his defense? Isn't he supposed to be an alleged billionaire? I mean, I'm not sending money to a billionaire for his defense fund. I'm sorry. Now, if he'd like to say I'm really piss poor and really I've been lying to you all along and I'm not, then I could see sending him a few bucks here and there. But what kind of moron is sending this guy money when he claims to be a multi-billionaire?
Well,
Well, you know, I would imagine he's even losing money on Trump Tower because I think a lot of people vacated Trump Tower because they didn't want to be there because of just the problems that, you know, were associated with it. And, you know, so, yes, Tony.
You know, it's funny you said that, like, who's sending money to him, right? What I find amazing is, and this is just, you know, observing it, it just shows you how, like, it's a cult of personality, how people are just not bright. Like, I wouldn't send any politician money, I think. Why do they need my money?
Yeah, and that's from a guy who's not bright saying that, so.
that's a rich guy.
You know, it's like, why would you send anybody money, really?
Well, I mean, you send people money for defense funds when you feel they don't have the wherewithal of the money to defend themselves. You send people money for their campaign when you feel you believe in them. But when they say they've got a couple of $1 billion, let them pay it.
Because remember Bloomberg? He ran New York and he never took a dime in his own campaign. He was doing it himself. But that's a real billionaire, though. When Bloomberg was
around. Well, Bloomberg is a legitimate billionaire.
Yeah, he's legitimate, yeah. And he was not even taking any donation.
Right. But, you know, so, I mean, it's amazing. My nose is itching. Excuse me, people.
Remember back when Trump started running for president, he said he was going to self-fund his campaign because he didn't need your money.
Yeah, he's going to take.
Well, part of the reason he didn't need to fund his campaign is because all the media outlets were giving him free publicity.
Yeah, they made.
I mean, he didn't have to buy ads on TV. I think he probably ran the cheapest campaign ever because all these morons at Fox and at MSNBC and CNN and all of them every day were giving him publicity. There was a need for him to spend money. Yes, Tony.
Alex, I was listening to the news before. I don't know if it was CNN. I was on the radio when I was eating dinner. I think it was it might have been Kardashian, the famous lawyer on the OJ team. You know what he thinks? They were talking to him. He thinks his lawyer, Trump, is going to maybe move the trial out of Manhattan and bring it out to Long Island or maybe out of the state.
What did you say about Kardashian? It was Robert Kardashian, but why?
That's it, yeah, Robert. Yeah.
Why'd you bring up Robert Kardashian?
Is it? Well, who was the famous? It was the lawyer. Was that the lawyer from the? It might have been the Kardashian.
Robert Kardashian. But he died.
He called it on one of the tech shows, and they were saying
no. Robert Kardashian is dead.
No, it's the other guy.
He's the father of some famous sisters.
It's the other guy. What's his
Alan
name?
Dershowitz.
That's it, Dershowitz.
Oh well, Dershowitz is a douchewitz.
Yeah,
he's lost his mind.
He really has lost his mind. But he did testify in the OJ trial. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
Well, you know what he said? He said if I was his lawyer, Trump, I would ask to move the case, the jury, out of Manhattan. He thinks New Yorkers can't give him a fair trial.
He may be right. There's a case for that.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, what are you going to do? Send him somewhere where everybody loves him?
But you're gonna say, like, where's the appropriate landing spot for him? Really, he said Staten Island or like Long Island.
I'll tell you, I think he's in better shape in New York than he would be anywhere else because New Yorkers have a tendency to believe that they're honest in situations like this and that they won't use their prejudice against him to tone the nature of their decision. That's what I'm thinking.
Could be, yeah.
You know, and who knows? It may be settled beforehand. For all we know, he says he's not going to settle. But hey, you know, maybe if he's willing to part with a couple $100 million, that'll buy him out of the whole thing. Unless you got felonies going there, in which
they got to unseal that, like they said. What do they have in there?
Yeah. So
we'll know Tuesday if they're charging him with a felony or not.
He'll be in Monday. They're saying.
I'm sure they're including a felony. See what they'll do there are several misdemeanors that if you committed the misdemeanor and it was in process of trying to do something else, it then becomes a felony. Yeah, because it's aiding a felony, the ability for a felony to exist. So,
So in law, some crimes can be a felony or a misdemeanor. It's called a wobbler. And they're going to charge the higher crime. And then as the trial goes on and as time goes on, after discovery, they'll actually hold a trial, and they'll, the jurors will maybe be left up to them if they want to charge them with a felony.
You've got to remember that they've taken a year to come up with this decision. And because it's taken them a year, they've really looked at a lot of evidence. And I don't think they came about this decision, frivolously. So,
No, I don't think so
yeah.
either.
So, I mean, I think they've got some kind of case against him. But
I
this
heard
is
that Alvin Bragg has brought 117 similar cases against New Yorkers in the 14 months that he's been in office.
He's brought how many?
117 similar cases.
Okay, so that's his specialty.
Apparently,
That's what he goes after. Yeah. Now, what's the thing with them? Who's that great big donor for the Democrats?
Soros.
Soros. Why in the world are they bringing Soros into this whole thing? How is he associated with Bragg?
He's like Lex Luthor for the
He's like Lex Luthor. Yes,
That's
right.
it.
It's just to inflame their base.
Come on, it's like a big.
Pure and simple.
I mean, but Soros, to begin with, I've always considered bringing up Soros's name as being a liberal. It's really saying, hey, look, the Jew liberal.
But what is he anyway, Alex? Is he a business? Or what
Well,
does he
listen,
have?
I hate Soros because I think he was involved in me being pushed out of Sirius XM.
Oh, so he has an agenda that whole
Yeah,
line.
because I was very critical of a lot of things about the Democratic Party, and supposedly Soros was somewhat involved with Sirius XM, with especially that particular channel, and he had the guy who replaced me was a guy who was on one of his internet things that he supported, that he spent money to run. And so a stooge of Soros's took over my spot.
I can see that.
Yeah, so I mean, I have no great love for Soros, but what I don't like about what they do with Soros is they're constantly bringing him up as, oh, well, he was a Soros guy and he was put into office by Soros and so on and so forth. And I'm going, you're just saying it because you may as well just say that Jew Soros,
He's hated. Bill hates him. I know that.
Huh?
Bill hates him, Soros. He mentioned that in passing.
Well,
It's
but
like-
he doesn't even know who Soros is. He couldn't identify him. He couldn't identify him in a lineup. Okay,
There he is.
so
man.
he has Phil has no idea who Soros is except Soros bad.
Yeah.
That's okay. He's texting me too, Tony.
What, is he?
What did he say?
Is he
Phil
text?
is,
Is he texting you right now?
Yeah.
Why
He
is
said
it?
He said he'll ask for a change of venue to move to California.
No,
Right.
See?
Yeah.
California. Oh, boy.
To who
I
to
said
move?
Texas would be better. There's a lot more Republicans there.
Well,
Yeah,
who's
you're right.
who's going to
California.
move to California?
Or Florida.
In a petition for a change of venue.
Oh.
Bill said that maybe he'll ask for California.
Oh, that'd be a great idea, wouldn't it?
Stupid.
I'd say Florida was more likely.
I would say so too.
Well, they would try that, but I don't think they'd get it because, to begin with, correct me if I'm wrong about this, wasn't the crime supposedly committed in New York, and it's New York that's charging him with the crime?
Yeah. Yep.
So if that's the
State
case,
law.
the only change of venue you could get was within the state of New York, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
So I mean, it's all curious. It's really curious. So we've never had a situation like this in history. Have we, history buff, Josh?
No, not really like this. No.
I mean, have we ever had a president who's been charged with a felony? I don't think so.
No.
They may have committed them, but we never found out about them.
Never know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just, and this guy has set a record. Okay, I was thinking about this tonight. He set a record. Not only is he the first ex-president to be charged with a felony, or charged maybe with a felony, but also he got impeached twice, which is a record in and of itself as well. So to anybody who doesn't think that Donald Trump is corrupt, come on, 3 strikes, you're out.
Come on, there's the pitch clock now too. Come on, let's go.
Yeah, the pitch clock. Oh, what do you think of the pitch clock?
I was watching the Yankee game. I liked it a little bit. I walked away and I missed a couple of.
But there's only one reason why it exists.
They just want to speed the game up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
They
The
want
Yankee game is a half hour shorter than last year's opening day, Michael K said after the game.
Because of the pitch clock?
Because of the pitch clock.
Because in case people don't know
what
what we're talking about, now when they're playing baseball, they have a pitch clock, and the pitcher only has a certain amount of time to pitch that ball. I think it's 15 seconds, isn't it?
Might be 15 or 20.
Well, but it's meant to speed up the game. Well, and you know what else they want to do? And I don't know if they've done it yet. They want to move the bases slightly further apart.
They made them a little bit bigger.
Made them a little bit bigger.
that.
But here's what's wrong with that. Baseball is one of the geometrically most perfect games ever created. I mean, the distance between those bases is such that it's a perfect game. You move that even by an inch, and you change the whole dynamics of the game.
I don't like that, Alex.
And it was the only sport that didn't have a clock.
Yeah, I kind of like the whole sitting at the game with my brother or my friends and just talking about the game.
I don't like I love baseball, but they keep changing the game.
They want to score more. That's
Well, you know what they change it for? They change it for, number one, they change it for gamblers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And they change it for, besides gambling, they change it for just speeding it up. And so they can also get more commercials in.
Well, because the players slowed it down. I mean, the players now, they walk off there, they do the Velcro thing a couple times, and they stretch a couple times, they come back in. They never did that before. So because of that, they have to do these things. So,
you really think it's necessary? Isn't baseball...
My grandfather played baseball, and all the baseball player there, all the pitchers were the best hitters back then. And now you baby the pitcher, and now you don't even have the pitcher bat now, except for Ohtani, but everybody else.
I'll tell you what I loved about baseball has always been the fact that it's in a lot of ways a perfect game, and it's a leisurely game. That's the other thing I liked about it. So what if it takes a little longer? Come on. You're sitting out there, you'll have another hot dog, you'll have some more beer, you'll get a little sun on your face,
Yep. Lester Posey was interviewed on KBR, and he said, he said, well, now maybe people won't be staring down at their phones anymore.
Because they have to watch more closely.
Because they got to watch the game, yeah. So he would look up and see people looking down at their phones all the time. So he said, well, maybe they won't do that now. So.
Okay, well, if you want to really speed up the game, play the game with guns.
I say the preseason, the spring training, they shortened the times by 25 minutes. Everything's changed. It's 25 minutes, more stolen bases, more runs. They had a whole bunch of stats for spring training,
So they think it's going to be better for the game.
Yeah.
Or is it better for the advertisers? That's my question. Is it better for the advertisers?
No. And actually, baseball is the only one that doesn't have. I mean, baseball is set. You have commercials either in between innings or when a new pitcher comes in, and that's always been the same. And those times have always been the same. Where basketball, they start having so many timeouts, and football. I don't go to watch the live football game anymore because you're sitting there going, "What's going on? Nothing's happening," and then you find out they're at a commercial break for 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think that I just like in the old days. I remember we'd have baseball games that literally would go so long that they'd have to stop them and finish them the next day.
Wow.
I remember that happening on one occasion. just went on for like 12 hours, and they said, well, let's go home. Okay, it's 2 in the morning. We'll come back
they had no
tomorrow.
lights back then, did they?
Huh?
Did they have lights? Did they have lights back then?
They had lights back then, except at where was it? Wrigley Stadium.
Oh, that's when they first got the lights. Remember when they first did that, Brian? When they had the light first?
Oh no, but you know what? Why they didn't have lights at Wrigley
Why
Stadium?
didn't they have that?
Oh, because Wrigley, when they built the Wrigley Building, which is a big building on Wacker Drive and Chicago Boulevard or whatever the street is, I worked in the Wrigley Building.
Oh, really?
Every night, the Wrigley Building was lit up. Well, those lights were supposed to be delivered to Wrigley Field, but Wrigley wanted them sent to the building so it could light up the building. And so for years, you couldn't do a night game at Wrigley Field. Yeah.
There was always day games there. Never saw a night game.
Oh, that's correct. There were always day games. And then finally, a few years ago, I think they finally sprung for the lights. I don't know why they didn't say, hey, come on, we make a lot of money out of this team. We can just put in the lights, can't we? No. Wrigley was too cheap to put in the lights. So that's what you get from going for a guy who only claim to fame was chewing gum. Yeah. So, yeah.
What did you do at Wrigley? What did you do? You say you worked for Wrigley?
No, I worked in the Wrigley Building, second floor, at
what
WIND in Chicago.
Ah.
Yes, that's where I worked there for, maybe 6-8 months, something like that, before I went to New York, before I was picked up in New York. To go to WMCA, but I worked at the Wrigley Building, and I remember the worst night of my life. Though, get this one, it gets terribly cold, and Chicago has this thing they call the hawk, the wind, okay, and the wind is such that it just is unrelenting. So if I used to have to every day, I get off the train that went into town. And I got off, and then I would have to walk across the bridge to the Wrigley Building. Well, as I walked across that bridge, during the winter, if it was really cold, by the time you got to the other side, my mustache would be frozen.
Oh, my God.
But the worst part was when you finally got inside, it started melting. I mean, it was not pleasant. It was.
Did they have worse winters there than Alex than New York? And probably. Yeah, right?
Oh my God, Chicago? Are you kidding me?
Oh wow. Okay.
It becomes frozen tundra up there. But that was my working at the Wrigley Building. That and the fact that I worked with Don Cornelius, who was my newsman, and what else? Anybody else I worked with there? That's about it. But anyway, that was my life in Chicago, which it's an okay town.
Wisconsin.
Huh?
I lived in Wisconsin for a while. It was very close.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about then, with the weather and so on and so
forth. It was
forth.
so cold.
Yeah.
If we went to go to somebody's house to play cards with a bunch of other guys, we'd all have to bring our cars and take the batteries out of the cars.
Really?
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to have to go and start my car up a half hour before I got off the air. I go out to the parking lot, start it up, because if I didn't do that, it would take me a half hour to warm up the car. So and that was when I was in Minneapolis. Yeah. Anyway,
Worse, huh?
hey, listen. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight. It's been a nice little discussion. Josh Wheeler, always the font of knowledge about things federal. And also Ray, thank you so much. I appreciate it, Ray. Thanks to Vernon Nunn for joining us tonight. And, of course, Jeff, who's down in Florida. How much longer are you going to be down in Florida?
Florida right now. I'm in Atlanta.
Oh.
I'm on my way going home.
Oh, okay. So we'll probably...
stopping by this couple of people.
Oh, okay. And we'll wave at you as you go by. And Brian, thank you. Really appreciate it. Is she still back there?
No, I kicked her out.
Oh, you kicked her out. Daddy kicked her out. And, of course, Tony, terrific. Thank you. Alan, thank you. Everybody, give a big wave goodbye, and I'll give a big wave goodbye at you, okay? There they go, ladies and gentlemen. That's our citizen panel for tonight. That's our citizen panel for this week. We'll see you again on Monday on Facebook with the pop-up show. And then we will be back here again next Wednesday at 10:30. Meanwhile, stay tuned for the lovely and attractive I'm about ready to call him by his real name, by Jack Bishop, who does The Intersection next over most of the same station. In the meantime, I'll see you next, well, I told you I'll see you on Monday, but I'll also see you Wednesday, 10:30 Eastern Time, same station in life. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye-bye, everybody.